Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about starting a business and my 10 fears that I had when starting my business. So this is relevant to 2020, 2021. I started my business in 2020. For those of you that don't know, I started it in May 2020, so right in the middle of COVID, and I'm going to be giving you all of my fears because there's quite a lot of things that stop people from starting a business, and I just want to give you my insight and kind of like my advice on each of those subjects and how you can kind of overcome them, because it does get better and you just got to push through any issues that you have and just try and think of the positives, because a lot of the time these fears are just you being too scared to take the plunge and start a business, because it is quite a big deal. So I've got my 10 things written down here. Grab yourself a drink, I've got a cup of tea, and we're going to get right into it. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to hear about all my new baking videos. I upload 3 times a week, so there's quite a lot of content coming out, and I have lots planned. I have a big long list of videos that I need to film because people keep requesting various things, so there is a lot more coming up. So we're going to get into these fears. So number one is probably the thing that most people are going to be thinking of, and that is money loss. So depending on what your situation is, whether you aren't employed or whether you already have a job, that can differ in terms of this fear. So basically, when I started my business, I was in a secure job and it was well paid in accounting, but I wasn't enjoying it because of COVID, and I decided that I was gonna quit and start my own business. I didn't know whether this was going to go very well. It could have completely flopped and been a waste of money for one, and a waste of time, and obviously once you quit your job there isn't necessarily any opportunity to go back, so that can be quite a big fear for people. So I would recommend getting in some practice before to make sure that it is definitely something you want to do, and also preparing yourself. Like, I didn't really prepare myself in terms of monetary commitments. I had my bills that I pay every month, and I made sure that I did enough notice to be paid, and then I started the business 2 weeks before, so that I was getting orders prior to leaving. But I guess for me, I just winged it, if I'm honest. But I would recommend, if you are thinking about doing it, especially with COVID at the moment, because it has been going on for quite a while, I definitely recommend getting yourself in a financially viable situation, so that maybe you do your job part-time, you try and reduce your hours if you're thinking of starting your own business, or you get a separate part-time job, which I did in October because I wanted to get a bit of extra money and COVID was still going on. So I got a part-time job, but now I've quit that and I'm doing baking full-time. So I would definitely recommend doing that, even if it's just for the first few months until your orders pick up and you're getting noticed by people, and then your business will then pick up and you might not need the part-time job. But yeah, just think about your options in terms of money, whether you can afford to not have that income, because if you have a partner, I don't, but if you have a partner, they might be able to like subsidize the money that you're losing or the money that you don't have. So yeah, you have to think about the money that you might lose, work out your bills, all that kind of thing, to make sure how much you need to earn before you then start this business. So the next one is your skill set. So obviously a lot of people worry that once they've made a few orders, if they aren't going to get any better, are they going to progress? Are they going to be good enough to get lots of orders in a month rather than a few? And I've heard this a lot from like either comments or just people messaging me saying, I haven't got any orders. Is it my fault? Is it my skill set? And it usually isn't. It's such a saturated market at the moment, especially because everyone is starting businesses, baking businesses in lockdown. It is such a popular thing at the moment. So because it is so saturated, you're going to have little lulls where you don't have as many orders, and with COVID and the restrictions changing constantly, you can't necessarily blame that on yourself, because at the moment people can't have gatherings, so they're probably not going to be ordering big cakes, so that would be why your cake orders are going down, highly likely. It might also be your skill set, but if you think that your skill set isn't good enough, then I would just recommend getting more practice in. I thought that I was good when I started, And then in the past month, I've really seen an improvement in my cakes, and that isn't me being like big-headed, but I can really see a difference, and it's because I'm putting more like quality time into them, and there's a lot more enjoyment there, I think, which has grown with it. I absolutely love it now, so I just love putting in that effort and spending time on cakes, and the skill comes with that. The more cakes you make, the better you're going to get. So yeah, I would just definitely recommend just learning as much as possible, watching YouTube videos, just building your skills to a point where you have learned quite a few different things, and then you can apply that to when you're making cakes and when you're making cupcakes, brownies, and test out different recipes. Just perfect things to a point where you're happy with them. So the next thing is business and paperwork. So this is to do with not knowing what you're doing in terms of paperwork, is basically the sphere. So I was in this position, and now I seem to be the complete flip, where I'm making videos about having all my paperwork sorted for my inspection, getting 5 stars. I sell business like spreadsheets and stuff on Etsy now, and it's like I went from worrying that I did not have the paperwork skills and like they weren't up to scratch and that my inspection was going to go badly, whereas now I'm on the opposite side, where people are asking me to sell my spreadsheets and to sell my kind of knowledge on paperwork because they think that it is to a skill where it's good. So I would definitely just do your research. Do your research on what you need. So give yourself a list of everything that you need to have ready for your inspection and everything that you need to keep records of on a daily basis, and just try and make it as easy for you as possible, because you're the one that has to fill out all this paperwork every day. You're the one that has to maintain it. No one else does. So if you make a spreadsheet and it makes your life 100 times easier, or whether you have a paper version and no digital documents, and you find that a paper version of your paperwork is much better, then do that. So I personally like to have both. So I have spreadsheets and then I also have written paperwork. I just like to have 2 logs. I don't know why. I'm just very organised, and I like to have they're slightly different. So like my spreadsheet log is for the whole year, so it will have just indefinitely all my orders, and then I have paperwork logs which are like monthly items, and like my temperature check are all printed out. And I just write them in, just because I find that I'm not going to go and type in a temperature into a spreadsheet when I check the fridge. I'm going to write it down because that paper is going to be near the fridge. So it's just making sure that things are in the easiest place for you to keep maintaining them. I also have all my paperwork in terms of recipes. I have them all printed out, and I rewrote them because certain ones I tweaked. So I've got all my recipes written out so that whenever I make a cake or a brownie box, I can just take that recipe out of my folder and it's right next to where I'm actually baking, so it's a lot easier for me to locate. I'm not having to go on my computer or get my phone out. I can literally just get it out of the folder easily enough. So the next one is money loss in terms of supplies. So the first one was money loss in terms of changing job. So this one is more so about buying equipment. So a lot of people think that you have to have the fanciest item possible, and I mean, I thought this originally. I wanted a KitchenAid since forever, but I felt like I had to have it the first week I started my business. I didn't get it until about 2 months later. And the only reason I did that is because I had a hand mixer and it used to get really hot whenever I was mixing because I was doing it for too long. It wasn't built for that kind of thing. It was like a £5 hand mixer. So it wasn't built for big batches of cake and brownies. So I decided that I was going to go for a more expensive mixer, and that's just because I am in accounting, so I kind of worked it all out, and I worked out that I would rather buy the KitchenAid that I know I'm going to buy, even if there are cheaper options out there. I wanted to buy that, whether it's in a year or whether it's now, because I like the way that all the appliances work and I can have it in my house in a couple of years and I can interchange attachments and stuff like that. But I wanted it anyway, and I thought, well, if I'm going to spend £100 or £200 on a different machine, then that's 100 or 200 that I could put towards the KitchenAid in a year. so I might as well buy it now. That was my thinking. But if you don't need it for the appliances, so if you're not bothered about all the attachments, so when I move out, I'd quite like the pasta maker and the blender that attaches onto it. But if you're not bothered, then I would definitely recommend like the K-Mix or even some of the cheaper options, because if you're only looking for it to be a mixer, then you definitely don't necessarily need a KitchenAid. Despite how much I love it, it is a more expensive version, so I wouldn't like tell you that you need it, because you definitely don't. There are so many cheaper options which work just as well, but I just wanted it for the baking and the kitchen kind of style of it, not just for my work, also for like personal stuff. So that's the reason I got that one. But I definitely wouldn't recommend going crazy on supplies, because a lot of people worry that they're going to spend loads of money on stuff to start their business and then they're actually not going to make enough money back. And unfortunately, when you start any business, there's going to be some outgoings before you make any money. That's the way that it works. You have to put money into the business in order for it to start actually producing money back and getting that interest and then getting orders. So I definitely think you need to consider how much money you have to put into the business prior to starting it, and then you can decide what things you can buy, what's most important. So say you already have a hand mixer, then you might do what I did, where I thought it was more important to buy things like boxes and like cake boards, and then I waited until I had the money to buy the mixer, because I waited 2 months where I knew that I had more orders, so I was able to commit to it because I felt like the business was going well. Whereas again, you don't want to spend £500 on a mixer that is only for your business, and then you decide in a month that you don't like baking and you're not gonna have your own business anymore. So you want to make sure that it is a permanent decision, because when you're spending that much money, this goes for anything, even like redoing your kitchen. Some people redo their whole kitchen, which I would definitely recommend maybe a few months down the line. But if you're not sure, then I would recommend going for all the basics, because things like turntables, spatulas, a lot of them, and even scrapers, you can get the cheaper version and they are just as good. But I just like some of the branded items for their special touch that they have, and like certain nozzles, things like that. But I definitely don't think you need branded everything. It's not essential, and it's surprising how much you can do with the appliances that you have. And like a lot of people think they need a separate fridge, and you don't. You just have to have separate shelves. So again, that saves you money, because you don't need to be spending money on separate fridges and freezers and all of that. Another one is your hygiene rating. A lot of people worry about this. I get so many messages, especially since I did that video on my hygiene rating, where people say like, I don't know whether I'm going to pass, is this okay, is this okay? I've had people sending me photos of their kitchen where they say like, is this layout alright? And I would definitely just say, don't worry about it. A lot of the time you have nothing to be worried about. They are there to help you, and a lot of their stuff is advisory. Obviously, if you have a really dirty kitchen and you've got like pests running around, then that's probably gonna fail you. But if you have a clean kitchen, you're organised, you have all your paperwork in order, all of your procedures, then I can't see why they wouldn't pass you. Obviously, don't hold me to that, because I don't know what it takes to get a 4, but you will definitely be getting a reasonable score, 4 or 5, if you have a reasonable kitchen, you've got your paperwork in order. All the people that have messaged me have always been 5s, so it seems like as long as you have all that stuff in order, there is no reason why you wouldn't get a 5. So I would definitely just recommend not worrying yourself about it. It's really easy to say because I've done it now, but I knew how much I worried about it. I literally cleaned my kitchen from head to toe, literally scrubbing the floor, because I was so worried that she was going to look in like all the little cracks and little spaces and be like, oh, there's a bit of dirt there, which is just crazy. They obviously wouldn't do that, but that was just me panicking. So I would definitely say try not to panic, because it's a lot like calmer and less stressful than you can imagine. So try not to worry about your hygiene rating. It will all be fine. If you have any questions, just let me know down below, or feel free to message me on Instagram, because I'll just reply. I reply to lots of people, so yeah, any questions, let me know. So The next one is impressing people, family or customers. So a lot of people worry that their family are sort of like making fun of them. I mean, mine, I wouldn't say made fun of me, because that is quite harsh. I would hope that no one does that. But mine were sort of questioning whether it was gonna turn into anything. They were completely supportive, but like my dad said, oh, you know, are you going to sell to any customers? This was when I was making loads of stuff for my family to try out, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like start this business, and you know, I just quit my job to do this. Like, it was a complete switch, so it wasn't like I'd been planning it for months. I literally started the business 2 weeks before, and then I went, right, I'm quitting my job, I can't do this anymore. So it was quite a sharp decision, but obviously now I make all my family cakes and they commission me to do it. And obviously I have a lot of orders, and I have Etsy, I have my own website. Like, it's quite established. Obviously it's not big, I'm not sort of saying that, but it's established in the first 6 months, and I think they're quite surprised. And I would definitely say don't worry. If they are taking the mick out of you, then just prove them wrong. Like, if anyone, whether it's customers, because I mean, some people get funny about pricing and they might say, oh, that's not right. You know, you're charging your customers too much. Don't believe what someone else says. You are the business owner, you make the decisions. If you want to price something the way that you want to price it, there will be someone that pays. Obviously, if you're cheaper, then you might get more people paying, but then you sort of run yourself into the ground because you're overworking yourself. And then if you're too overpriced, you might get less orders, but it's all a learning curve. You will learn your pricing, you will learn how to respond to people, how to advertise. All of that comes with having the business for a certain amount of time. So I would definitely say just focus on yourself and the business. Don't worry about what other people think. Obviously, if you get criticism or feedback, then try and take it constructively, because obviously a lot of the time they don't know your trade. So like, a customer won't necessarily know what it takes to bake a cake, so there is a lot that goes into it. So yeah, try and take things as constructive. Obviously, if there is a negative bit of feedback, we'll get onto that because I have got a subject on that, but yeah, just try and remain positive and put yourself and the business first. So the next one is actually bad reviews. So I would say it's going to happen at some point. You can't please everyone, unfortunately. Touch wood, luckily for me it hasn't happened yet, but it will happen at some point. It's inevitable when you're running a business, and it won't necessarily be the worst thing in the world. You might just get someone saying, you know, it was great, but this, if you could change, would be great. You know, it's not going to be that they completely hate it. They might just have some tips, and you just want to take that professionally and just accept that feedback, and then just try and resolve it. If it is an actual issue, then I'm going to actually do a video on that, because that can be quite complicated. But if it is just feedback, then just try and take it on the chin and learn from it. And yeah, don't let it get you down, because I see so many things in cake forums where people are really kind of like let down by negative feedback, and just try and take it positively, because it is difficult, and running your business is difficult. There is so much that goes into it, and I think some people don't get enough credit for the amount of hard work that they do. And I know that bakers in general do a lot of hard work, and the hourly wage might not necessarily be that great, but you put everything into your work, so just try and take it positively. So the next one is pricing. So if you haven't already, I'm going to put a ticket for my pricing video, because this is a big fear of people's, because they worry that they're not pricing right, that they're not going to get any customers, or they're worried because they're getting too many orders and they can't fulfill them, or they can't fit in the amount of people that want to order, which is potentially because it can be one of two things. You're either very skilled and you're in very high demand, or sometimes if you're pricing too low, then you will get a lot more orders, but you might not necessarily be paying yourself the right hourly rate and like the right cost for your ingredients, and just having a break because you're kind of overworking yourself. And I would just say, do your research on pricing, work out an hourly rate, work out your costs. Just make sure that you're not plucking a number out of thin air just because someone else said that their cake costs £40. It doesn't mean that that's how much yours should cost. It all comes into ingredients and how much they charge per hour, and this all differs from baker to baker. I mean, mine vary from people in my area, and I mean they're local, so they're going to vary from someone that's in Birmingham or, you know, Scotland, so because that's far away from me. So just try and focus on your own pricing and do the maths to work it out. Don't you know, just worry and take someone else's number as gospel, because again, in like these cake forums, people say what they charge. They might put a cake on there, and although it is very helpful, it gives you a bit of perspective into the different prices that people charge, but it also gives you that difference. So people will be commenting, someone might say, I would charge 50, I would charge 90, I would charge 70, and it just shows you that there is a difference between bakers and that you want to charge based on your hourly rate and all of that. But that is a whole separate video. It's quite complicated, but it is not anything to be worried about. Once you get your pricing sorted, you will be away. I have finally got mine sorted about 2 months ago, and I'm getting customers based on those prices, so I'm not worrying that people aren't ordering because I'm too expensive or anything like that. And yeah, it seems to have stuck, so now I'm just going to stick to those prices, not change them. But yeah, it can be worrying, and you end up changing them loads of times because you're worried it's either too high or too low. But yes, make sure that you do all the workings out, and then it should all fall into place. So the next one is not enough orders. Again, this fits into the pricing worry usually, and just if you don't have enough orders, just try and use your free time to educate yourself. So trying new techniques, I definitely recommend. I've done this in previous videos where I've recommended this, but I would recommend cake dummies because you can practice on them. All you're using is icing. You don't have to use, you're not making any cake. Then it means you're not wasting too much money on however many cake dummies you want to do in your free time. I probably do maybe one a month, and obviously because you're just using buttercream, it's very inexpensive, and a lot of the time people can't tell it's a dummy, so it means that you're getting your skills out there by trying something new and a potential design that someone might order, and it's also not costing you very much. The last thing is losing interest and motivation. This is quite an important one because obviously if you don't like your job, then I would recommend you don't do it. Obviously stick something out. If you aren't enjoying it on the first day, then it's highly likely that you will enjoy it within, you know, a month. But if you have been doing it for months and you're not enjoying it, then you need to change something about it because it's not gonna change if it's been going on for a very long time. So just make sure that you're doing everything you can to make it easy for you. So like having a routine, I find, is really good. I find baking in the morning is good because I'm very motivated in the morning. I don't really want to be baking in the afternoon, but I always find that I quite like to decorate in the evening, and that can sometimes be really late depending on when I got the order, if it's a last minute one. But I do like to get everything baked in terms of like in the oven in the morning, so that that's all done, and then I feel like I haven't got as much stress because I enjoy the decorating so much. So I find that that isn't a hassle for me to do that whenever I'm free. But baking I don't like to do in the afternoon, so it's up to you. Like if you hate washing up, then try and figure out something around that. There will be tasks that people don't like. I mean, again, on cake forums people say, you know, I hate washing up, I hate baking, I hate the decorating, I hate making buttercream, or I hate doing fondant. There are things that people aren't gonna like, but you just need to get in a routine to the point where you have it set that you enjoy different tasks at different times of the day, and you've got certain things done before you sort of lose motivation. Maybe after like midday you lose motivation, so try and get all the rubbish tasks done in the morning. But again, like I say, if it is just a case of you don't like your job, then I would just recommend talking to someone and try and figure out a solution. If you look for something else, this isn't just for baking, this is just in general. No matter what job you're doing, you shouldn't have to just work and not enjoy it. The reason I started baking and doing this job is because I didn't like my previous job, and I was thinking, I'm 21 and I don't enjoy my job. How am I going to last another 30 years before I retire if I don't like it now? That's what you need to think of. So as long as you enjoy your job, you'll be able to do it for a long time. So yeah, I'm rambling now, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. and giving you an insight into my fears, just showing you that not everything is perfect all the time. People do worry about things. These are the things that I worried about when I started my business, and now I don't worry about them at all because I have overcome them. I found solutions. And yeah, I hope that any of these fears, if you guys have any of these, then feel free to talk to me about it. My messages are always open and I don't mind answering anyone's questions as usual. So yeah, I hope that this was kind of insightful and helpful to people. So that is the end of the video. If you did like, then make sure you liked and subscribed, and hit the bell if you want to see more of my baking videos. If you have any requests, then please put them in the comments down below, because I have a list of videos that I want to do and that I need to do, but I also have a list of ones that are requested, which I try and prioritize over mine so that you guys aren't waiting too long to see something that you've requested. So make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you want to see, and I can try and get that done in the next few weeks. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye!